In the small, fog-laden village of Ravenswood, hidden among the ancient forests and forgotten footpaths, there stands a house that time itself seems to have abandoned. Its shutters hang askew, groaning with every gust of the wind, while wild brambles claw at the weathered siding. Locals dare not tread near this house after sundown, for they know the legend that festers within its crumbling walls. The tale of the cursed spirit of the Unborn, a haunting that wails and weeps in the darkness, seeking that which was stolen from it long ago. The story begins decades ago, in the heart of a merciless winter. In the year 1927, under a sky bruised with storm clouds, Eleanor Blackwood, a young woman from a distinguished family, fell prey to the whispers of the villagers. Rumors had spread, malevolent as poison, accusing her of carrying a child conceived in sin. In those days, judgment came swiftly and cruelly. Her family, more concerned with their name than their daughter's well-being, exiled her to the solitary house at the edge of Ravenswood, where she was meant to atone for her shame in silence. It is said that Eleanor's cries echoed from the windows at night, calling for mercy, for forgiveness, or perhaps simply for a companion in her suffering. As winter gnawed at her flesh and the world turned its back, the child within her grew weaker. One bitter night, the wind howled so fiercely that the bare branches scraped against the house like skeletal fingers. Eleanor's wails pierced the storm, but no one came to her side, not even as her pleas faded into desperate sobs. The next morning, a hush had fallen over the village, heavier than fresh snow. By noon, a single piercing cry, neither wholly human nor animal, split the air, reverberating through the village. The following dawn, a passing traveler found Eleanor lifeless, arms wrapped around her stillborn child, their bodies twisted in agony and sorrow. The villagers, fearful of the wrath of the dead, buried mother and child beneath the gnarled yew tree by the house, sprinkling salt and ash over the grave in a futile attempt to anchor their spirits. For a brief time, Ravenswood rested quietly, but the house drew darkness like a wound draws flies. As the years drifted by, so did a parade of tenants, each fleeing sooner than the last, skin crawling with dread and dreams haunted by unrelenting, pitiful sobbing. They spoke of icy drafts that carried the scent of iron and decay, of frigid hands that brushed their faces as they slept, of sudden, inescapable grief that would seize their hearts, drowning them in sorrow they could not name. Yet it was the weeping, soft at first, barely audible over the sigh of the winds, that truly unsettled. A chilling lullaby, sung by a mother to a child who never drew breath, swelling into a chorus of anguish that would rattle the windows and shake the foundations of the house itself. No matter how tightly doors were locked or how fiercely fires were stoked, the cries crept in, a bloodless hand pressing upon each listener's chest, urging them to remember, to listen, to grieve. Whispers grew in the village. They said the spirit of Eleanor roamed the halls, her hollow eyes searching for what was lost. But more terrible still was the presence of another, the cursed spirit of the Unborn. Invisible to the eye, it moved with the silence and fury of a storm. At night, the temperature would drop, breath turning to mist in the air. Then, faintly at first, a wet, spluttering gasp could be heard, as if tiny lungs struggled in vain for air. The unlucky who lingered too long said the spirit's cries changed, sometimes shrill with rage, sometimes desperate with longing. Shadows lengthened at odd angles, and the world itself seemed to warp. Objects would swirl through the air, battered by fits of unseen fury. In mirrors, those who dared look too deeply would glimpse a pale, spectral hand pressed against the glass, as if begging someone to come closer, to cradle what could never be comforted. There were worse reports, recounted in shaking voices by those who escaped the house. The feeling of being watched, always, even in the deepest shadow. The suffocating sense of guilt, as though every breath was an apology for existing when others could not. And then, the touch, a razor-cold caress along the back of the neck, or the fragile pressure of spectral fingers curling around a wrist, never quite harming, but chilling to the bone. Over the years, investigators, thrill-seekers, and priests both pious and trembling ventured into the house. Some emerged pale and shaken, refusing to speak of what they had witnessed. Others were not so fortunate, driven mad by phantoms only they could see, their minds rent by the sorrow of an interrupted life. Local legend insists that one priest, desperate to purify the ground, remained inside the house one full tormented night. Come morning, he was found on the steps, hands clutched around his head, whispering a single, unending phrase. "I couldn't save it. I couldn't save it." With every generation, the spirit's cries grew louder, twisting through the roots of the earth and the beams of the decrepit home. It is said the house drew those who carried their own wounds, women in distress, families riven by secrets, anyone with the faintest echo of heartbreak. To them, the spirit's wails were more than haunting. They were a summoning, a binding cord that tugged at the marrow of their bones. The villagers learned to heed the signs. If the air grew cold enough to cloud one's breath in summer, if the yew tree's shadow stretched across the path at midday, or if a low, keening cry rose from the woods, all doors would be bolted and windows shuttered tight. Mothers would clutch their children closer, whispering prayers until dawn. Still, some sought to understand, searching the brittle, moldering journals buried beneath the floorboards of the house. One such notebook, a trembling hand's final confession, spoke not only of pain, but of desperate love. Eleanor, it revealed, had never wished harm on her child, nor on anyone else. Her spirit lingered out of devotion, twisted into torment. For in life, she had known only abandonment. In death, her despair had become a beacon, calling forth a darkness even she could not control. All hope, it seemed, had withered. But on the 100th anniversary of Eleanor's death, a scholar arrived, determined to end the haunting that plagued Ravenswood. He spent days scouring ancient rites, piecing together a ritual of peace. As midnight tolled and a storm lashed the house, he knelt before the yew tree and recited words of forgiveness, not only for the dead, but for the living who had failed them. The air shivered as sorrow and anger held together, twisting around the tree like a blackened ribbon. For a moment, lightning illuminated the spectral forms of mother and child, locked together in yearning. The mortal onlooker stood steady, pouring all his compassion into his words. And something shifted. The cries softened, blending with the lullaby Eleanor once sang. As the first slivers of dawn clawed across the sky, the spirits faded, leaving in their wake a hush that felt neither cold nor accusing, but infinitely tired. Today the house still stands, but its pain has ebbed, its darkness less hostile. The brambles, once choking, have thinned. Children no longer fear to walk its path at midday. Yet, on nights when the fog creeps thick over Ravenswood, and the yew tree shivers under a bruised sky, the faintest of lullabies may still be heard, soft as a breath, sad as a mother's longing, haunting as only love denied can be. Some say the spirit lingers, not in anger, but in memory, a chilling reminder of cruelty, loss, and the yearning for forgiveness. Others believe peace has finally found Eleanor and her unborn child, two souls adrift in the twilight, rocking gently on the edge of darkness and dawn. The lesson endures, whispering through the hallways of the battered house and the hearts of those who live nearby. What we abandon may one day return, not just to be mourned or feared, but to be understood, and perhaps, at last, set free.